Good morning. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Philly on PHLY with John Marks. As always, brought to you by Parks Casino. Get to the Bet Parks app right now. Eagles 2.5-point favorites in the game against the Bucks coming up here on Sunday. John Marks with you. Tyler Zulli in the house. Big show today. Tom McCarthy, play-by-play voice of your Philadelphia Phillies, will join us later on the show at 8:40. I wanted to talk about celebration, because last night was the hangover game for the Philadelphia Phillies. And I didn't say it, but I thought it, and then Tyler beat me to the mic to say it. He said he was betting his mortgage or his rent on the month on the Cubs money line last night. And it was 10-2 at one point. They came back, they scored a couple runs. I think Schwarby hit a home run, 10-4. But that was the biggest lock of the year last night, that the Phillies were going to lose. And I think when we saw the celebration afterwards, it's easy to see why, right? I think in previous years, after they've clinched, they've come out sluggish, or some regulars have been out of the lineup, or it looked like that the sense of urgency wasn't necessarily there to win the game that night. Tyler, you called it last night. That game was over pretty quick. Phil scored a couple early runs, but once they went down by a couple runs, it was pretty much over.
Yeah, and it was, by the way, it was a Cubs lineup that was missing a bunch of guys.
Right.
Swanson didn't play. Bellinger didn't play. It was just one of those games where I think that if you were a betting person, you would have put a lot of money on the Cubs to win that game for a multitude of reasons. Taijuan Walker, you knew Taijuan Walker. It was inevitable that he was going to pitch. It was an opener game, a hangover game. So I think betting the Cubs last night was like a surefire way to win some money.
So it'll be called in term the hangover game, and we'll go through it coming up here in a second. Phillies lose 10-4. Was it really the game that Taijuan Walker pitched an inning and 2/3, and Kolby Allard came in and pitched 4 innings, and Tyler Gilbert pitched 2 innings? Really, it was a collection of the fifth starter rejects that they have to keep going back to, because they don't have another fifth starter. Maybe that contributed more to the loss than anything, but it was going to be something that we talked about. Because let me say this. This team certainly, remember when Andy Reid said, hey, don't worry about it, enjoy the win, man? And he said that to an Eagles reporter who was questioning him after a win. Well, hey, don't worry about it, enjoy the win, man. Phillies enjoyed the win. So here's after the game. This is NBC Sports Philadelphia. Here's after the game in the clubhouse. This is the scene. Every white guy on the Phillies had their shirt off, spraying champagne, celebrating, everything else. These guys, go ahead and put it up there. Put it up there. These guys, and you'll hear it. See, no shirt. Stott had the UNLV helmet on, which I thought was really cool. There you go. More shirtless men. And listen, if I had Bryce Harper's physique, I'd probably be shirtless too. Stubby had the overalls on. Was anybody surprised with what the scene was in the clubhouse afterwards? I don't think that anybody was.
No, it was expected, right? They wanted and we talked about it yesterday. Like, you can separate the expectation of they were going to win this division for a long time,
right? Versus
you're still allowed to celebrate it. It's a 162 game season. It's a long year. It's a grind to win a division, right? So, but that's goal number 2 of 6 that they have, right? So they checked another box, and they're going to continue to move on. And I think that last night didn't help them move on because of the hangover game, but I think you have to separate, this was going to happen versus they're still able – you can still let them celebrate this.
Right. Yeah, it's the final game of the season wasn't last night to where they needed it for home field. But anyway, the one game could end up costing them more than that in the second. Here's the Xfinity Live afterwards. Because, listen, if you're going to clinch, where are you going to go? Well, let's go across the street, go to Xfinity Live. They put you up top. So here was the scene. I don't know how many of the Phillies players were there. I'm assuming a lot. But a couple of Phillies, maybe people in the chat can tell us who it was. So here's a video. Go ahead. Great music in the background, too. You'll see Phillies players hanging their children, their babies. Denang, I don't think they really hung them over the whatever. But that's Simba. Is that from The Lion King?
Yeah, that was like literally, the beginning scene of The Lion King where they
lost on me because I've never seen it.
Never seen The Lion King?
I believe me, I knew that was going to be the reaction.
Kids.
Yeah, but I don't think they've ever seen it. Or if they have, I don't remember.
Wow.
We watched The Little Giants together. That's the movies that we watch.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, I don't, I watch Bluey with my kids. No, I've honestly, I've never seen The Lion King. I know Simba.
Wow.
I don't really know what, I don't even know what's going on in the movie.
I feel like regardless if you have kids or not, that's one of those movies where you go, okay, I've seen it at some point, right? Like I've seen The Lion King.
I would say it's odd for me to have absolutely no clue about any of it. It is. It's odd.
Interesting. Okay.
I'll be the first.
Are you a movie guy?
No.
That's why.
I mean, it was also the mid-'90s when I was in college or working all the time.
That's also fair. The mid-'90s, I was a kid. It was right up my alley.
Exactly.
It made sense.
But it's still odd to have never seen it. All right. So then there's that. So they're Xfinity Live. First of all, let's not make the assumption that every Phillies player was drunk and woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a floor somewhere or was throwing up into the toilet or had a bad hangover. We don't know how much these guys were drinking. They're spraying champagne. Are they drinking? You know what? I think that responsible people can go out and have a good time and maybe have a couple drinks if they're not driving home and go home and still be okay the next day. Now, is that going to produce an optimal athlete? Are you going to be 10 out of 10, 100 for the next game, the next day? No, you're not. You're not. There's no possible way that you can be as good as you would be if you didn't do that, right? But we've also heard about pitchers that were drinking the night before and then came in and throw no-hitters, right? So let me read you something from my old boss, Spike Eskin, on my old show on WIP yesterday. And Spike and I still keep in contact with Spike. He's very supportive of me, and I'm very supportive of him, and I love all the guys on the show, and I love WIP. This is what he said yesterday. Because people saw everything with the players being out and everything else. He said, this is just not the right time to do it. This team has bigger goals in mind, and God forbid we wind up having to play next week. Or God forbid it's the NLCS against the Dodgers, and they have to fly to the West Coast for the first 2 games. They should be happy about winning the division. They should have a good night and go out for a steak dinner somewhere. I wasn't asking them not to be happy about it. I'm asking for them not to get blackout drunk. And by the way, he said that he has no evidence that they got blackout drunk. But his overall point is, don't go out and party. Go have a steak dinner and then go home and then get ready for the next night. And it's a good take, and it's something that probably needed to be said by a media member out there. And just let me be the first or the last person to say that I couldn't care less one bit about the 76ers going to a steak dinner and going home and getting rest and playing last night. I don't care if the guys weren't ready to play last night, if that indeed was the case. I saw their starting pitchers. They put their worst starting pitchers, their worst pitchers in the game. That contributed more to last night than them going to Xfinity Live afterwards. But isn't this baseball, 162 games? Haven't we learned enough by now that the teams are successful, the teams that win, are the teams that have a close camaraderie, are teams that enjoy each other's company, are teams that are able to go out? Winning the NL East is a really big deal, and it's something that you should celebrate. If last night's game was to determine home field for the World Series, you can make a much better case. Nah, you got to get home, no partying, get out there. Could it end up being that? It could. It could. It absolutely could. But you know what? Like, I watched this game. I watched sports for moments like that last night where they clinch, where they celebrate like that, where they go to Xfinity Live afterwards and celebrate it with the fans. Tyler, play this. This was after 2023. Now, this was after they clinched against the Braves. So they have a couple days off before they face the Diamondbacks. And by the way, they started off well in that Diamondback series. So they had plenty of time. This made more sense to go out the night before. But this is why you go to Xfinity Live after the game. This is why if you're a Philly player, you go, look at this scene. This is what this Phillies team is about. This is community. This team is community. Play it, Tyler. This was last year after clinching. Chills. Like, look at that place. It's unbelievable. I don't like crowds. I don't like to go out anymore. I've quickly become the old guy that get off my lawn.
Old man
guy.
yells at clouds.
You're jealous of not being young enough, at least for me. Like, I'm jealous that I wasn't young enough to be there. But guess what? In 2007 and 2008, I was. And I was there. And I experienced all that. So now it's time for other people to do it. But that's why I watch the sports. And if you're going to worry about the team going out and celebrating, even if they celebrated a little bit too much, which we don't know that they do, but if that's going to be your take and your concern, which is you're going to worry about this game tonight, sorry, I'm out. I don't care. Kolby Allard pitched last night. Gilbert pitched past night. Taijuan Walker pitched last night. That's the bigger contributing factor to them losing the game than going out and maybe staying in Xfinity Live too late.
I would have my 21, 22, 23 years, like the time that I would have been down there for a Phillies run like this was 2016, 17, and 18. I don't know if you remember those teams because they sucked. But if I had a team that was consistently within the playoff realm, and right as you turn 21, you have the legal drinking age, you want to go hang out.
You're a maniac. You'll go do anything.
So like that would have been amazing to be a part of. And I will say this. I understand what I'm about to say is a different scope for us as our jobs versus professional athletes.
Are you up here on the screen?
Oh, you know what?
Put yourself up on the screen.
I forgot to do that.
It's awkward when you...
It is, I understand. So it's a different scope for us versus professional athletes. I'm going to ask you a question. You can be honest. We're adults.
Sure.
You ever come to work hungover?
Have I? Of course.
Everybody does, right? I understand the levity
under the influence.
I understand the levity of the situation is different, right? If I come to work in this job and I'm hungover, I might look sluggish, but like our product is not going to fail. I don't think. Unless I suck that bad at my job that day, our product's not going to fail. But every adult has gone out the night before and had too much to drink or, was a little less responsible than they should have been, knowing work was the next day, right? And you come into work and you're hungover, your head hurts, you're a little queasy or whatever, but you do your job.
Right.
I understand the scope is entirely different for a professional athlete than it is for us on a day-to-day job. But in an instance of like in a vacuum, like a brevity moment, like one fleeting night, let the guys go have a little bit of fun. Let them go enjoy themselves. And Topper said, hey, listen, we still got ball games to play. We still have a goal. We still have multiple goals.
The manager said party tonight.
He told them to go party.
He did. And you know what? It was smart. Here's the other thing. Let's because this is something that really I probably should have said before. When we look at the partying, and Spike even said it. He doesn't know. He doesn't have any evidence that there was anything crazy going on. But the overall point, you really need... What player on this team is going out and drinking in excess to where it's affecting him majorly the next day? Let's just look at the team, look at the roster, and this is completely unfair to be judging who would be hungover and drinking and who wouldn't be. But would you be surprised if Stubbsy woke up with a headache at 10 a.m. yesterday?
Well, one of the things too we talked about
he got a hit.
This team over the last calendar year, a lot of families on this team have had babies and have small children now. There is, I assume, there's a responsibility factor, not just to your team, but more importantly to your family to be a responsible dad in that situation. And so I think that we talked about it. They're a fun team. They're a lighthearted team. They don't take themselves too seriously. There's a lot of jovial nature to this team. Right. But I also think that they are responsible enough.
Bryce Harper's not blackout drunk at 3:30 in the morning. Kyle Schwarber's not blackout drunk at 3:30 in the morning. Did they go to Xfinity Live with the rest of their team? I hope they did. It's a bonding experience. But you know what? Bryce might have went home for all we know. Who knows? Is Castellanos going out? Is he at 4 o'clock in the morning, looking for women on the streets? I don't think so. Maybe some of the younger guys or some who knows? Who knows? I don't think it affected them at all last night. So I'll be curious to see. I want to hear what Spike has to say about it today, but I'll be curious to see because they went down 10-2 last night. So it's going to be easy to have that knee-jerk reaction of, the hangover game. It's being called the hangover game. It's being called the
hangover game every year, though.
Which I love.
That's what I love. For every team.
You're right.
I would imagine the teams that can't afford, last night, the Padres clinched the playoff spot. We'll talk more about that. They can't afford that type of game because they still are chasing a division
there's 2 games
title
behind in the division.
And I understand the Phillies are still chasing a 1 seed, and they want the 1 seed. I think in that scenario, it's a little bit different. Like the teams that are still like objectively looking for importance, the Phillies are one of them.
Yep.
But I think like the Padres have more in mind, right? They're going to celebrate their playoff berth, but it would be
They're
silly
playing
of
with
them
a sense of urgency
Right.
that the Phillies won't be able to play with.
Correct.
Just period. The urgency won't be there. Jamie Lynch has been accused of celebrating and taking
Of
selfies
witchcraft.
in the
sorry.
Phillies clubhouse. We will discuss that coming up in a second because we did a deep dive and investigated the charges. And Tyler, I have some information on the case.
Oh.
So we'll talk about that
Okay.
coming up. Tom McCarthy is going to join us about 8:40. Obviously on the call, get his thoughts on everything. Also, TMac, he's a big NFL announcer doing play-by-play for CBS. So we'll talk about a lot with TMac coming up at 8:40. But listen, let's talk about Glatt hair restoration for a second. Because I was looking for and I like 10 times. I'm like, I gotta find this before and after picture that I have from before my hair restoration procedure, after the hair restoration procedure, and then when I walked in here today, I saw on one of our big TVs out there in the main room on Roku TV. If you're watching us right now from Roku TV, so we have Roku TV on. So our show from yesterday was actually on, and I went up and I'm watching, and I'm like, man, it looks really good. Then I started looking at the hairline. So I got a freshie yesterday. I went to Razor Bar, got a freshie. You may have seen, looking pretty tight, high and tight, and like, man, the hair looks great. It really does. And it's now I'm looking. I'm like, all right, well, where are the imperfections, right? Like, is it thin here, thin here? Like the results are amazing. The results are absolutely amazing. So if you thought about hair restoration, there's only one place that you should really consider. It's the place that I talk about. It's the place that I went. Glatt Hair Restoration, most experience and most success when it comes to hair restoration, period. So if you thought about it, you considered it, you heard me talking about Glatt Hair Restoration for years and years and years now. Now's the time to get in. Give them a call, free consultation. You can come into the office for a one-on-one consultation because it's not just hair restoration. They're about managing your hair. So non-invasive treatments. If you're starting to thin and you're like, you know what, I want to slow that down, they have something called TED. They have PRP and stem cell restoration, topical oral medications. They have vitamins and supplements now that really, really work, especially for women, laser light therapy and more. Call today. Glatt Hair is not about restoration. It's about innovation. 610-980-4000. That's their phone number. You can speak to their hair team. 610-980-4000 or glatthairmctr.com. glatthairmctr.com. Well, there you go. All right, let's talk about Bet Parks for a second. Parks Casino. Love Parks Casino. I was talking to the people up at Parks just yesterday. Actually, I do on Wednesdays with the Bet Parks team. I do a little Phillies podcast called Out of the Parks with John Marks. We'll do it today. We'll do it live, 3 o'clock today. But listen, Bet Parks, the only app I would ever recommend. They still have this offer. And I'm trying to get with the Bet Parks people. I'm trying to save them money, all right? Because they still have a 50-1 odds boost for this year's Pro Football Championship. So you've seen your team play 3 games, or you've seen the NFL for 3 games. It's like, all right, like who do you think is going to win right now? You've had a sneak peek at 3 games. You can still get your pick boosted 50-1 odds. BetParks.com has all the terms and conditions. Don't forget you can double down on 4th down. So when you're watching the game, boom, it goes to commercial. Oh, you don't have to go to Red Zone. Go to Bet Parks. How about blackjack, roulette, and craps with a live dealer right there on the Bet Parks app? So all new users, if you've been using something else, Bet Parks is amazing. Only app that I use. Limited time offer for new customers only. You must be 21 in PA, New Jersey, Michigan, or Maryland. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Bet Parks. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, well, there you go. And by the way, I was looking at this right before the show. Rich Hoffman Jr. sends our PHLY daily about 7:30 every morning. It gets right on the dot, 7:30 this morning. It's the daily sports page for Philadelphia. Everything you need to know, PHLY daily. And again, he hits a home run with everything that he has today. So make sure you subscribe. It's something that I look at. I look forward to the 7:30 time so I can look in my inbox and check it out. So there you go. All right, so listen, I've known Jamie Lynch a long time. Tyler, you've known Jamie Lynch a long time.
I have.
He's the bro. He's an upbeat, fun, He's just an overall great guy. Not a negative bone in his body. Just when you think of Jamie, you smile. He's such a goofball. He's a great Philadelphia sports fan. Love Jamie. Love Jamie. Which is what hurt me yesterday when I heard there were charges levied against Jamie Lynch that were just flat out, I don't want to call lies, and I'll explain in a second, but just flat out not true. All right. Mike Missinelli, my old boss, is back on radio in Philadelphia. He's working with Bill Colarulo, who I happen to be friends with, and I think they do a very, very good job. I've always been a big Mike Miss fan. I'm a big Bill fan. But yesterday, I started getting text messages. Here's how it sounded, and this is courtesy of the On Pattison Twitter handle. Here's Mike Missinelli yesterday.
Apparently, some young reporters were taking selfies in the clubhouse afterwards with the celebration going on in the background. Now, listen, it's to each his own. That's not something I would do. I'm more of an old school guy. But I think, let fans have their own kingdom. Like, that's a fan thing. Like, you've crossed over a little bit. You can still, root for the team to win, but I think you got to have a line of demarcation because you're disrespecting the fans, I think, when you do something like that. That belongs to them.
So that's for the fans. And look, in the clubhouse, to your point about some younger media members taking selfies and trying to party with the players, to me, that's the play. Let the players have their moment. You're not a part of this.
We got to do some investigative journalism because was it our former pal here, Jamie Lynch? Was he one of them?
That's the word on the street.
That's the word on the street.
He may have been a part of that. I mean, there was a lot of video being posted on Twitter, so I don't know who was taking part in the celebrations and who wasn't. But to me, that's
look at Colarulo getting involved. So yes, that's the accusation. Jamie Lynch, and I don't know who else he was talking about. He said other young reporters were taking selfies in the clubhouse after the game, when there was the celebration. Now, Tyler, as I said, I don't have a journalism background at all. I was never an investigator. I do like true crime shows. I do like the First 48. I watch Cops.
So that makes you qualified,
all the
right?
time. I would be a great detective. I watch some of these shows and I'm like, this guy's an idiot. What is he doing? He should be doing something else right now. So I
easy to say while you're munching popcorn on the couch.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Monday morning quarterbacking for crime dramas is very real.
For homicide detectives, I'm doing Monday morning quarterbacking for homicide detectives. All right. So I did some digging. Jamie was taking pictures. Do you have the one in the clubhouse? We unearthed this one right here. This is totally unprofessional. Jamie Lynch after the game. There he is right there. Bryce Harper's shirt off. There's Jamie peering over his shoulder. Jamie's shirt's on, though. All right, after the game on the field, the team's trying to take a picture. Why is Jamie on the field? This is totally unnecessary and unacceptable as a journalist. There he is right there, standing up. Jamie Lynch.
Doesn't even have any shoes on. The man's in flip-flops out there.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Even afterwards. So obviously Jamie wasn't doing this. Jamie, Tyler, and Renee were at their homes doing post-game.
I can attest. We were on the air after the game. For a good hour. An hour plus, actually. I think we ended up going like an hour 10.
So the accusations by Bill Colarulo and Mike Missinelli are totally inaccurate. I would expect an apology today from those two. Jamie Lynch was actually home doing a post-game celebration on the air, which he's a Phillies podcast host. What do you think? You have to be a strict journalist, even if he was enjoying it? Here's the thing. And this is like the serious part of it. And what Mike said, and Mike came from a time where like he's a Jeff McClain type reporter. Jeff McClain ain't taking selfies. Jeff McClain's not chumming around with the players. He's trying to build relationships and he's trying to get information. But Jeff McClain is a much different reporter than, let's say, a D Gunn. D Gunn's a TV reporter. There's a difference. Jeff McClain's trying to do investigative pieces and people say hit pieces on the Eagles. He's trying to dig to get the inside dirt on what went wrong last year. Right? Like, not everybody on the beat is like that. Todd Zalecki, Matt Gelb, all those other guys, they're not posting selfies of the celebration on their Instagram or their Twitter. Or if they are, they shouldn't. Can you take a selfie in the clubhouse to document kind of your life and what you do? Yeah, just don't post it on social media. And I don't see how anybody could have an issue with that. But this idea that the media in 2024 is a one-size-fits-all type thing, there's very few Mike Missanelli and Jeff McClains that are left around being reporters, and there's a lot of electronic media, there's a lot of blogs, there's a lot of everything other than that, non-traditional media that has now become traditional media, Tyler. Like, this is what the media is. And Mike had said in the clip at one point, he said that you have to be objective. Guess what? I don't have to be objective. Why do I have to be objective about anything? I feel like I am objective. I give my opinions on things. I don't carry water for my teams, but I'm a fan. I'm not going to pretend that I'm some stuffy reporter that can't root. I root for my teams. I'm pissed when my team's lost, and that's when you hear me criticize the teams. And we're honest and we talk about issues and stuff like that. So while we're having fun with Jamie being in the clubhouse and taking selfies, which nobody at this network was doing anything like that, but also like the overall theme of what he was saying was that, like, who cares? If Todd Zalecki is drinking beer or is pounding beers with Garrett Stubbs in the clubhouse, that's a big issue. That's not happening. That stuff's not happening. So Mike, Bill, and you too, Bill, you should apologize to Jamie Lynch today. You really should. Because throwing his name out there was unfair. Now I'm going to defend him. They were given bad information by somebody at the station. They didn't come up with that on their own. Someone that may have worked on an earlier show was running around telling everybody, the guys at PHLY, Jamie Lynch, they were down and they were taking selfies in the clubhouse. So that's how they got that information, and they had no reason not to believe that at that point. All right, because their own producer was doing corny videos, and that's how they're also talking about it. So there you go. So and just to end this conversation on this, all right, Jamie even caught a bizarre, and Jamie had fun with it on social media. Jamie caught a bizarre tweet from somebody with a handle of Heels on the Field on Twitter. I guess it's a I don't know if she does a podcast but she's got like 7,000 Twitter followers. So it's like some type of a baseball personality tweets the following and retweets the Missanelli video. Older members in sports media sometimes make mistakes in their reporting. Falsely stating that a woman reporter, Jamie Lynch, was taking selfies with players is not something that I would do. To each his own. So Jamie is not a female reporter. Not that there would be anything wrong with that, right? He's very much I'm a man, I'm 40 is what Jamie responded back to that. Mike Gundy. So a very odd situation. I watched it unfold yesterday. And I had to, I got right on, put my journalism cap on, put my homicide detective cap on, and I figured things out.
I texted Jamie after the day was over, and all I said was, so Jamie, how's your day going? Anything fun or exciting happen at work today? Yeah. And he gave me the haha response back. So
he enjoyed it. Jamie likes the attention. He certainly does. Now, and just to take you back to this, and we'll get to some headlines before TMac. Way back in 2007, put this picture up there, Tyler. It's Harry Kalas and Aaron Rowan. All right, and this was where earlier when I was talking about I had my moments covering the team where I was able to enjoy them. So this is a somewhat iconic picture. It's Aaron Rowan pouring the champagne on Harry Kalas, and I think he's singing High Hopes on the field. You'll notice over Harry's right shoulder, you probably didn't notice, in the blue shirt, taking a picture of everything, blocking his face, is me.
That's you?
Yes. Jeff Harbaugh is to my right, my former coworker from Sports Radio 950. That is me wearing a fresh Jive shirt that I still have on the field. I think I had shorts on, too. Shows you how
So you would have been, what, like in your 20s at that point?
I wish. No, but like close to it. I guess I was 30.
Hey, young guy at the time. Still a young guy. I didn't mean that derogatorily.
17 years later.
I didn't mean that derogatorily. What I'm saying is, still new in your career at that time.
New in my career, and it's like I've been given the keys to being in the media, and I'm on the field for the Phillies game. And they just, because like for me growing up, there was 83, which I vaguely remember, 1980, which was my first memories of life, and then 1993. Phillies didn't make the playoffs any other year until 2007.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, like, so I think it's almost kind of comical how this happened. So my dad was born in 63. took him till 76 to see the Phillies make the playoffs. He was 13.
Right.
I was born in 93, but after the World Series. I was born in December of 93. So it took me till 2007. I was also 13 the first time the Phillies made the playoffs. So I told people when my wife and I announced that we were having our first kid, I think he's in a good spot to not have to wait 13 years.
Yeah, but it's also about remembering. So I would put the age at 4 or 5. In 5 years, they better still be good because you might be in the post. Bryce
Kind of
Harper's
getting to the end of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the point being is, like, you're right. I had no recollection of what playoffs were because I didn't have any. He might have no recollection of what playoffs were because he was too young.
Right.
At least you got that to lean back on.
Sure.
He'll, when he's telling his friends 20 years from now, yeah, I remember when the Phillies, I don't remember the Phillies in 2024, but
I was born the year they went to the World Series. Right. Yeah, it's a cool thing.
Got to count for something. I mean, I was born the year the Phillies went to the World Series. It was just after the fact.
It's cool. So once upon a time, and I'll admit to this right now, and then we'll get to some headlines here quickly, where I was with Meredith Marakovitz, who I was working with at the time. Now she does stuff for the Yes Network up in New York, but with the Yankees. But yeah, like I remember, like I had my press pass. I just go to the games. It'd be like getting a standing room only ticket. And there was one time where I went up to use the bathroom and I sat down in the press area, and I definitely had been drinking, which was not a good idea. I should have never done that. So you live and you learn. But whatever. All right, so do we have some headlines here? TMac's coming up here at 8:40, but we have a couple headlines from last night. And Tyler, the headlines, we have a nice spiffy sponsor now. We appreciate the good people at Glad Hair Restoration.
Yeah, how about that? Our headlines are brought to us by the Glad Hair Restoration, and you talked about them a little bit earlier in the show, but it's never a bad time to remind you that bald is now optional. And if you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glad Hair has the right treatment for you. So you can regain your confidence and visit gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. And you brought it up. The Phillies do lose last night. They lose this one in pretty convincing fashion, 10-4 to the Chicago Cubs. It wasn't all bad, at least until the second inning, because Tanner Banks threw a clean first inning, and the Phillies were able to get out of this one kind of unscathed. And then Bryce Harper comes to the plate in the top of the first. And despite the fact that they clinched the playoff spot yesterday, or the division spot yesterday, and we weren't entirely sure who was and wasn't going to play, Bryce Harper steps up in the first and delivers
that ball's drilled deep to center field. On the run is Crow Armstrong. Over his head, over the wall, into the bushes. 30 home runs for Bryce Harper for the 5th time in his career.
So 5 times in his career, Bryce Harper's hit 30 home runs. 2 of those 5 times, Bryce Harper went on to win the MVP of the National League, once with the Nationals and once with the Phils. So it was a good start to the day, 1-0 after 1, but that's when things kind of imploded. You brought up Taijuan Walker struggled, Kolby Allard struggled, Tyler Gilbert ended up throwing two scoreless innings, but it didn't really matter at that point. But Tanner Banks didn't pitch well in the second either. He ends up giving up some earned runs. I got to ask you, we've talked Taijuan Walker plenty. We're not going to, mess with the guy any further. What is the decision to bring Taijuan Walker in with the bases loaded in that situation? You're just asking for failure at that point.
Yeah, I can't imagine you thought that was going to... Topper said the night before, go out and party tonight. When you tell your team to go out and party, your expectation is you're probably not going to win that game. That's how he managed the beginning of the game. Taijuan Walker, I'm not like I agree with you. I'm not going to beat him down. You're not going to hear me bitching about Taijuan Walker really ever again.
I don't want to do it anymore.
I'm going to bitch about the team for putting him out there, which is what you're doing. Anytime you put him out there, you should just assume that he's throwing batting practice. It can't be in any type of a leverage situation. Even if you're just trying to stay in the game, don't put him out there. I actually feel, you said this before the show, I feel bad for him at this point. He's cooked. I must use the F word there. He's cooked. He's got no shot out there.
So the Phillies do lose. They drop to 93 and 65. Of course, they've already clinched the division. A couple of other teams have clinched either divisions or playoff spots in the last couple of days. The Houston Astros have officially clinched the AL West. An impressive comeback for them, and a pretty cataclysmic fall from grace by the Seattle Mariners after a hot start to the year. The Cleveland Guardians have now officially clinched the AL Central. The AL Central wild card race is a fascinating one. The Twins are 2 games back. The Tigers and Royals are now tied at 83 and 74. I think the Tigers deserve a massive amount of credit for the comeback that they've mounted in the second half of the season. They looked like they were dead to rights, and now all of a sudden they're 9 games over 500 and in a playoff spot.
Yeah,
it's been impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty good finish here to the playoffs. It's going to be a good last week. The Padres and Dodgers. Padres, look out, man. Dodgers are on their heels. Padres are hot.
Yeah, so the Padres last night clinch a playoff spot in one of the most dramatic fashions possible, up 4-2 with the bases loaded and nobody out. The San Diego Padres turn a triple play to not only beat the Dodgers, but to officially clinch a playoff spot. Like you said, now just 2 games back of the Dodgers, still with 2 to play with them over the weekend, I believe. Maybe it's 1 more to play at this point. No, it is still 2 more to play. Excuse me. They played tonight and tomorrow. 2 back with 2 to play. I'll be honest with you, John. I've been saying this for a while, and I know it wouldn't match up likely until the NLCS. If there were a team that I don't want the Phillies to face in the playoffs, it's been the Padres for about 3 weeks now. They're playing some really, really good baseball.
And there's a big revenge factor because the Phillies have had their number. So I agree with you. I do. I agree with you.
But
they're fun.
Handful of games to be played today. The Mets and the Braves are at it again. The Baltimore Orioles clinch a playoff spot with a win last night over the Yankees. Some of the other games of merit, as we talked about, the Padres and the Dodgers will play again today. The Tigers look to beat the Reds. They win last night 2-1 in another game that finished under the 2-hour mark in the 2024 season. The Tigers have, I know we just talked about them. I have so much praise for this team because they sent Spencer Torkelson down to begin the season. He was really, really struggling. Javi Baez continued his downward descent into almost non-factor at this point. Right. But it was Tarek Skubal and everybody else. But this starting rotation's been really good. They trade Jack Flaherty. I wonder. I know that they get something in return. I wonder if they're starting to regret moving on from Jack Flaherty at this point. But the Tigers have done a really, really nice job in the second half.
Pretty amazing story. For sure. All right, TMac's coming up here in just a minute. By the way, programming reminder, TMac's a good get, but tomorrow on the program, maybe the biggest guest we've had. In studio, right at this time, Herb from Northeast Philly, scheduled and confirmed to join us tomorrow. If you don't know Herb, you better check him out tomorrow. If you do know Herb, you better check him out tomorrow. So Herb from Northeast Philly booked on the show for tomorrow. All right, T-Mac in a second, but listen, TrueMark, check them out. You're traveling all around. Maybe you're not even traveling. TrueMark Financial's mobile app allows you account access anytime, anywhere. Check your balance, view transactions, make transfers, pay bills right from the convenience of your mobile phone. You can add your cards to the mobile wallet for easy in-store or online payments. And check this out. They're mortgage specialists, TrueMark Financials. I saw a bunch of people tweeting about this yesterday, and I'm very interested in the housing market. If you're looking to get back in, check them out. TrueMark. They can offer guidance on loan options and terms to help you assess your finances and credit score to determine borrowing capacity. How much can you afford? Right? Get with them. If you're unsure about any of these things, maybe you're a first-time home buyer, this is why you go to TrueMark, because they're going to give you the answers that you need, right? Save money for a down payment, and you can budget for your closing costs. So check them out, TrueMark Financial. They're federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLYITY. TrueMark.com/PHYITY. All right, there you go. FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. Best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. So if you're going to a game, NFL, basketball, hockey, show your love with team-branded friendship bracelets. Tyler has a bunch of them. I saw them. Hoodies, jackets, beachwear, overalls, stubby. There's something for fans for almost every occasion. Fogo has cooked and hooked up PHLY with some awesome pieces for our sets. And I'm still... When are we getting the overalls for Foco? It feels like...
So they came in last year right about this time, because we had them for playoff time. I remember Jamie and Renee wearing them down to the wild card round. So I'm assuming they'll probably be here shortly if we get another set.
Just so you know, I don't want to wear the overalls. I'm just saying that. I'm glad that I didn't wear them last year. I talked about wearing them last year, and I did, and I was glad that I did.
You can display them. If you don't want to wear them, you just display them.
It's fine. It's fine, and you should go to Foco to get them. And also right now, non-presale items. How about this? 10% off. PHLY10 is your promo code. PHLY10. Now, is that a checkout? You know how you'll hear people in the commercials say, Use code PHLY10 at checkout to save 10% off. Check it out. FOCO. Can't wait. You know what happens when the team is good or they make the playoffs or whatever? Then you go out and you start buying merch because you want to show up to the playoff game or you want to wear that new hoodie or whatever. So I love merch. And speaking of that, right now, just a shout out before TMac jumps on. Upper Moreland Golden Bears football team 5-0. Shout out to them. I actually don't even know who they're playing this Sunday, but my alma mater, my high school, Upper Moreland, 5-0, which is quite an accomplishment. They've been killing it the last couple years. So congratulations to those guys. You know who else is killing it? The Phillies. Tom McCarthy with us there. Oh, there he is. See, this dude is so generous with his time. He was partying at Xfinity Live with, I think Alvarado held him over the balcony like Simba the other night. What's up, Tom? Got me?
I got you, John.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I was partying all right. It's a good thing I don't sleep much. It's funny because, look, I got some Band-Aids on my head. So I last night we were talking about this thing that was on my cheek. John Kruk saw it on my face last night. And he goes, you should go get that checked. And I was like, yeah, maybe I will. So in between innings, I checked and saw my dermatologist had an opening this morning at 7:30. And well, guess what? It's a good thing I got it checked.
Hold on a second. You went to the dermatologist at 7:30, and then you came back to do this. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that.
Rob, hey, they're pretty quick.
Are you okay? Is there a diagnosis? I see the Band-Aid on your right cheek.
I don't know. They did a biopsy. It's like a squamous cell. It's all good, though, man. With this head, there's so much stuff going on there.
Well, you're shut. You look like you put Mr. Clean on the head this morning. It looks good, Tom.
I do. Thank you for saying that, Mr. Clean. I'd rather be Mr. Clean than Egghead.
So last night's being termed the Hangover Game.
I hope so.
They partied. So listen, Rob Thompson told them to go out and party tonight. Nobody knows if they were really drinking heavily or they just went out a little bit later than normal. But when you come out and you look at the game and they were losing 10-2, I'll say it was more that Kolby Allard came in and pitched, and their first three starters that came in, including Taijuan Walker, gave up 10 runs in the first couple innings. So was it combined with that maybe they were out a little bit later the previous night? I mean, I don't know. It's easy to say that, but
I'll be honest with you.
Game.
I don't think staying out, and they weren't out that late, but I don't think staying out had anything to do with it. I just think it was just poor pitching, honestly. I mean, you get a 1-0 lead and you can't hold it right away, obviously, and then you just implode after that. The number 5 spot has been good at times this year with Turnbull and Tyler Phillips when he first came up, and it's not been good. They have an ERA of almost 7, the number 5 spot in the rotation. So last night's the last night it's going to have to be utilized, and I think it will obviously be addressed in the offseason.
Right.
But I don't think it had anything to do with being celebrating the night before. Maybe the thought process of we won the National League East.
Right.
But they really do want, obviously, one of the top 2 seeds, and they would love to have the top seed. So, I think it was just bad pitching last night.
Yeah, and the sense of urgency drops down a little bit based on you clinching, and it probably get revs back up now that you're like, all right, we need to win these games. Tom, you're especially in baseball, you do 162 of them, and you don't do the full 162 because you're very busy with the NFL, but you're doing damn near all of them. And so you're traveling with the team. You're with the team constantly. You see Rob. You see the coaches every day. This team right here, they seem very close. The other teams as well. What's this team like? What's the identity? What is kind of the personality of this team compared to the previous 2 of this run right here?
Well, it's very similar to the previous 2, but I do think they've gotten closer over the last year or so. And I think losing to the Diamondbacks has sort of fueled that because it's sort of a collective disappointment from last year, losing Game 7. And quite frankly, Johnny, they should never have come back from Arizona without the trophy last year. I mean, they shouldn't have. And they know that. But I think that they've grown together with another year. They are extremely close. It's very similar to the 08 team after losing in 07, kind of getting shell-shocked in 07 to the Rockies. Very similar to the 08 team. Very similar to the 09 team as well. So I like that they've grown together. They've added some pieces that really do fit the puzzle in this clubhouse. And, I'm excited to see what they do. I know that their offense has still been up and down at times, but I'm excited to see what they do in the postseason just because they have this drive to be better than they were last year.
Yeah, this year, the bullpen seems like a real strength as opposed to last year. Once you got in the playoffs, once Alvarado kind of lost it, they were in big trouble. Before we get to that, let me ask you, I think the one burning question the Phillies fans have is, what is Rob Thompson going to do with the starting rotation? How do they line it up? Is it
Great
Aaron
question.
Nola's the number 2? Chris Sanchez pitches that much better at home. Any insight, or what would you do if you were lining up this playoff rotation?
Well, we talked to him yesterday a little bit about it when we had our meeting as broadcasters, and he hasn't decided yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with who the matchup is. Whether they're going to face the Padres or the Diamondbacks or, the Braves, the Mets, whoever it's going to be. So I think that'll dictate a lot of it. I do think he's chewing over the fact that he wants Sanchez, that Sanchez will pitch game 2. 2 reasons: split up the 2 right-handers, but also give him the home game. The other part of it, though, is that Nola's pitched really well at home over the years. So, he's weighing that as well. So I don't think there's anything set. And he's usually pretty forthright with us when it comes to the planning part of it.
Yeah.
He wants to take care of the top 2 seeds first, and then because he, at that point, he'll know he's off next week. Then he can sort of decide what he wants to do, depending on the matchup, who's going to pitch game 2. Definitive Wheeler game 1. I would say that he's probably leaning toward Nola game 2, only because of being the steadiest of guys reputation-wise or past years-wise. But I don't think he's adverse to thinking the way everybody else is that Christopher should be game 2 starting.
Man, he's been so good. We had Scott Fransky on with us last week, I think, and he had said one of the things you don't have to consider with Nola is he very much is hey, Aaron, we're going to make you the 3rd starter.
It's exactly right.
And he'll be like, oh, okay, sounds good. You're not going to worry about pissing him off or upsetting chemistry in the clubhouse.
Nope, not even a little bit. He's the guy that you want to hang out with and watch TV with, go to the movies with. Just say, hey man, you want to go to a Burger King or McDonald's? I don't care. Like that's who he is, man. It's who he is, and that's why I don't think it's going to be a topic of worry. I think if it happens, it's going to be because of matchups and because of comfort level for Christopher. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be fazed at all about it.
Bounce back to the bullpen for a second, man. I mean, and Estevez hasn't been. I mean, he's been really good, but what it does is it makes the rest of your bullpen that much better.
Doubt.
Jeff Hoffman in the 8th inning, holy cow, man. I mean, he is one of the best 8th inning guys in baseball. Now, Kerkering doesn't have to be used in the 8th inning as much. Alvarado's kind of a wild card. Strom and Alvarado had gotten good again for that stretch right there. This bullpen, if a starter can give you 6 innings, which is so difficult in the playoffs, I know that. I feel much better about this team closing games out than I did in that Diamondback series.
Well, I would agree, and I think you're right. I think Kerkering can go in the 7th inning, and he could be dominant in the 7th inning. And this is a starting staff that they're not going to, I know they changed a couple years ago when they took like Wheeler out in that game against the Astros, which could have led to the Phillies having an additional run against the Astros. I think Rob's going to take the same approach with at least the top 3 guys that he took during the regular season. Now, if he sees something, he may pull them out early, but I think he's going to leave them in there, for as long as they possibly can, because they've shown this year how good they are. I mean, the starters have the most wins in baseball. They've gone the deepest of any other team on a consistent basis, averaging over 6 innings per outing. So, but I think it's true. I mean, you got Kerkering in the 7th. You can throw Strom in the 7th or 8th. You got Alvarado that you can go if you want to in the 7th to get a lefty out. Or to get anybody out at this point, because I think his stuff is better. And then I don't think he has it set for the 9th inning. I do think he likes the Hoffman, Estevez, sort of back and forth. But I do think there'll be times where you'll still see Hoffman close it out if the matchup calls for it for some reason.
Another great Dave Dombrowski find where he was on waivers, anybody could have had him. But man, Hoffman has been an all-star level where he's been an all-star since they got him.
He has resurrected his career. Actually, he's given himself a career. That's the thing. He's given himself a career because he's going to get 3 years and whatever money next year.
$45 million.
It's just inevitable, and I hope it's with the Phillies. But he's played himself into a very nice contract, and honestly, John, he's a hard worker. He's a great dude. He is also somebody that that deserves this because he's worked hard to get to this point.
Yeah, agreed. It's a great story. Tyler Zulli, my producer and also of PHLY Phillies, asked a great question. It's back to starting pitching. So will he set the rotation at the beginning of the series, or could it possibly be, hey, what happens in game one? Does that change things? Which I don't think with Thompson. That's what
I think it's going to be he'll set it before the series, and I just think that there's a sense of normalcy that Rob would like, and I think he feels like if he has it set, then there's no doubt in anybody's head. Like let's say if the Phillies lose game one, and if he shows any kind of panic, which he never does, that sometimes seeps into the clubhouse. Right. I believe if you're a manager that shows that or shows body language or anything like that, I think he'll set it before everything gets underway. Now, could he change it if they advance to the championship series? Absolutely. Sure. But I think for this series, he'll set it before we go.
Set it and forget it, like Ron Popeil and the.
That's exactly right.
And the Popeil, whatever that cooker thing was. All right, so TMac, by the way, we appreciate it because we know you're a big star these days. CBS football, play-by-play, very, very busy. Now, Tom, I go way back to you. I've never talked to you about this. I was a big fan of talking baseball. I'm obviously I'm a huge fan of radio, and so from I think it was 2001 to 2005, you did the pre and post.
Yep.
And you also did some play-by-play, and you did talking baseball. So you were doing a pregame that was really kind of like Let's Talk Baseball, and you took phone calls on it. I always enjoyed that show. You go to the Mets for a couple of years, you come back, and that's when you have more, that's when you're really full-time play-by-play T-Mac. But you're also the former voice of the Princeton Bears football and basketball. And your most famous call with Princeton, I believe, was the 96 NCAA tournament where 15 beats 2. So UCLA won the national championship in, I guess it would have been 1995.
Correct.
Who was on that team? The O'Bannon brothers were on that team, right?
Yep. And what the heck is the little point guard's name?
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name.
Now. But that was my first NCAA tournament game was Princeton against UCLA, and I still have the tape. It's on a cassette tape, and I have to EQ the cassette recorder, and I got to make sure my cassette recorder still works all the time because I haven't moved over to digital, which I should. But I have to EQ it because if I don't, then it sounds like this when I do it.
Right.
That was the first game I had ever done, and I'm like, man, this is unbelievable. If this is what it's going to be like moving forward.
15 beats 2. So Princeton beats, and it was a high-scoring game, 43-41, if I remember correctly.
And man, that was typical Princeton under Pete Carrill. It was Carrill's last year also.
Oh, it was.
So that was a hoot being with him the whole year and doing the interview with him before every game.
Wow.
And, we were out in Fresno State. We were taking on the Shark when he was the head coach of Fresno State, and I remember walking with Pete to the luncheon for this tournament that we had with Fresno State. He had a cigar in his mouth. He never lit it anymore. And there was a railing going up the stairs to the luncheon. He takes the cigar out and he puts it in the railing, like right into the railing itself. And then we come out 2 hours later and he grabs it out of the railing and puts it back in his mouth as we're walking away. I mean, it was unbelievable, the whole experience of doing games with him.
I actually had it down. What was it like working with him? I didn't realize it was the last season. It was last season.
Year.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, he went on to be. He was with Sacramento for many years after that.
Yeah, Bill Carmody took over after that, and then John Thompson, and that's when I left to go to St. Joe's for that year. They went to the Elite Eight.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how would you rate your call on that? Because you're obviously still early in the business. How was your final call?
Well. That's Reese's Peanut Butter Cup McCarthy right there. That's barking at something.
That's all right.
So I rate that call as not knowing a damn thing of what I was doing, to be quite honest with you. So I liked it. I liked everything about it. And then I listened back to it and I said, and the upstart Princeton tie. I'm like, upstart? I've never used upstart. I've never used it before, and I've never used it again. I have no idea where that came from. But other than that, I loved it because I don't want to say I was scared, or anything like that because I wasn't. But I was like, holy crap. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I had to make sure that, I got in that the defending national champions were out. And back then, John, they never really, there was no social media. So the only way for me to listen back to it was through the cassette. And then ESPN ran it that night. Like we're in like one of the rooms that they have set up for everybody, the media rooms.
Right.
And they have ESPN on, and they didn't have like top 10. I guess they had top 10 plays. Anyway, they ran my call, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, how did they get that? I thought it was good. The only thing, I talked with such a nasal back then. Like, I talked through my nose. Like, I sounded like Sylvester Stallone and Rocky sometimes. But
I gotta get it. I gotta get the call. Honestly, I'm at 4:00 in the morning. I'm looking up some stuff and I'm Googling trying to get the radio call, which is Gus Johnson did the TV call.
He did, yeah. Gus did the TV call.
Which I heard, but if I would have had another day, if I would have thought of this yesterday, I would have emailed Princeton and said, "Hey, any way you can get me this? I would love to hear it."
Jerry Price has it from Princeton. I have it. Like I said, I'd have to.
It's on cassette.
I would have to put it. I'd have to put my phone over it, and that's how you would get it. That's pretty much the only way. I probably have it somewhere on my computer because I know I probably sent it to somebody when they were doing some kind of a retrospect of that. But
it's out there. I just couldn't find it.
Listen, I knew it. I knew it was never a play that they had run. Right. I knew that. So you're always ready for the back door with them. And I felt good that I sort of described everything the right way, and I gave the score and all that other stuff. But I'm telling you, when I said the upstart Princeton Tigers, I listened to it even today. I'm like, what the hell is upstart?
All right, so here's my question. Do you write stuff down? Because you just called the Phillies won the NL East. I actually went back and I listened to Harry's call when they won in '93. They clinched the division. It was Don Paul. Like, Don Paul, the Phillies win, right? Do you know that you're going in the moment that they're going to clinch at some point? So do you just have things in your head you're going to say, or how do you go about doing it?
I just have things in my head. I don't like to script anything at all. The only thing that I wanted to make sure that I got in, and it's funny, my kids had a bet, they said, before I did it, what I would say. The only thing I knew I wanted to say, it was 13 years, and it was their 12th National League East crown.
Right.
Because back in '81, they had the split season, and the Expos and the Phillies both won a half of that season. But the Expos won in that postseason, so it didn't technically count as a National League East crown, which some spots say it is, some spots say it isn't, but it's not technically. So I wanted to make sure I had those two things. But I never write anything down. If I do anything, there may be a bullet point or two about a reflection on something in my book. But I always feel that I can always tell when somebody writes down a big call.
Yes.
And I don't want that to be it.
It sounds like it.
To me, it comes out.
It sounds like it.
Whatever way it comes out. And it's live TV or live radio. I just want to make sure that it's factually correct, and you sort of collect the moment, of what's happening. So no, I never write anything out.
Man, well, listen, we are lucky in Philadelphia to have not only the TV broadcast, the radio broadcast. You guys are the best. Whether you're in the car or you're watching on TV, nobody has it like this in the country for us. All right, last thing. NFL, so far you did the Arizona-Buffalo game, which was a hell of a game. Buffalo came back big in the second half. And then you had the Chargers in Carolina. You might have done play-by-play for Bryce Young's last start in the NFL, Tom McCarthy. I don't know if he's getting back.
Well, it's funny. I think he's going to get traded at some point. Yeah. He needs to go somewhere like with Tua when he found a head coach that used his skills. And I'm not saying that Bryce Young's Tua at all because he's much smaller. He needs to find a system that fits what he did at Alabama in some way, shape, or form. And I don't think it's in Carolina right now.
Yeah. Thank the diehards out there, all the great listeners and everybody out there. Thank the diehards. I agree with you, Tom. It's not going to happen in Carolina, not with that owner. And he was drafted number 1 overall for a reason. He's not Jamarcus Russell, but they need somebody that can actually get that out of him. He might be too small. He might be too small and not big enough of an arm or elusive enough. He looks a lot different playing in the NFL than he did in college. That's for sure.
He does. He's such a great kid. He's smart. I do think he can figure it out, but I don't think it's as a starter right now. I just think he needs a little seasoning, and he needs and I'm not saying that Dave Canales is not a good coach. He could be. He just needs something. He also needs a more of a running game. Not that Chuba Hubbard hasn't run the ball well the last couple weeks, but I still think he needs somebody else in that capacity too.
Yeah. You have a game this week or?
No, I was supposed to be in Vegas for the Browns and Raiders, but I wasn't sure of our clinching. So I cleared my schedule for last week. It turned out I wouldn't have had a game on TV, but I might have had a radio game for Westwood. But I cleared this week from CBS just because I wasn't sure about our clinching, and they're really good about it, about making sure that I sort of coordinate where I am and when I'm at a specific game.
All right, there he is. Tom, you're the best. Hopefully everything with the cheek goes okay. Tell Crucker you're feeling better. Everything got taken care of.
He's very happy. I texted him this morning, and I couldn't believe he was awake, but he was very happy about the fact that I got it checked.
Can't believe he was awake. Tom, you are gracious with your time. Thank you. Great talking to you.
All right, guys, be good.
All right, there he is. TMac, Tom McCarthy. Guy, he's awesome. Just love him. All right.
You weren't kidding, though. Like, we do have a really awesome stable both on the radio side and the TV side for baseball. Scott and TMac are both fantastic.
Yeah, and I've talked to Tom about this before in an interview, and it just wasn't the place or time to do it today, but, like, he wasn't well liked for a while trying to take over for Harry Callis. He was the new guy.
It's an unfortunate spot to place yourself in. You're stepping in the footsteps of a legend.
You were broadcasting with the Mets, and you're from Jersey.
Hard job to fill.
Damn,
He's done a tremendous job. And I think he's gotten better and better as the years go on.
He's great. I would say 98 out of 100 play-by-play guys would have failed and would already be out of here. And he was resilient, and he worked really hard at it. And Tom's awesome. And Phillies fans definitely, things have changed with Tom's in the last 15 years when people were mad that he was taking over for Harry. All right, we're back tomorrow. Again, listen, this is the biggest guest we've ever had on the show. Herb from Northeast Philly is going to join us live in studio. Can we handle the excitement? And we're going to play Ask Herb. Hashtag Ask Herb. If you have a question, we will ask the best, worst on the air to Herb tomorrow. And we'll talk about everything else as well. Shout out to everybody out there. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.